While this podcast isn't rated explicit, the content may not be suitable for younger listeners. Welcome to Sex for Saints, the Christian couple's guide to great sex. I am your host, certified sex and marriage coach, Amanda Lauder. This is episode 328, Fantasy versus Desire. Welcome to Sex for Saints, a podcast for Christian couples. My goal with this podcast is to help enlighten, educate, and inspire you to understand yourself, your spouse, and your sexuality better. I talk about sex in a way you probably haven't heard before. I'm bold, I'm direct, but I keep everything in line with my strong Christian values. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. In some Facebook groups I'm in, problems with a spouse's fantasy often come up as a topic of discussion. Spouses don't always understand a certain fantasy. They're scared their spouse wants to turn it into a reality, and they don't handle it well. So today I wanted to dive into the difference between fantasy and desire. We're going to explore what each one is, why they're different, and how they're developed, and what to do if they fall outside of your value system. We're also going to look at some common fantasies and desires and how to share them with your spouse and what to do if your spouse isn't receptive. So let's get started. So let's first talk about what is a fantasy. A fantasy is an imagined scenario that often involves sexual themes. Now, these scenarios can range from the simple and sweet to the very wild and adventurous. They might involve people you know, celebrities, or even fictional characters. Fantasies are often a safe way to explore your sexuality in your mind without any real-world consequences. Fantasies allow us to escape reality for a moment and explore different aspects of our sexuality. For instance, you might fantasize about being swept off your feet by a dashing stranger, engaging in a passionate affair on a private island. This fantasy doesn't mean you want to be unfaithful. It could simply reflect a desire for more excitement or adventure in your relationship. Another common fantasy might involve role-playing. Imagine you're a knight in shining armor, rescuing your spouse from a dragon, and the two of you share a passionate kiss after the daring rescue. This fantasy might tap into themes of heroism, protection, and deep romantic connection. Okay, so if that's a fantasy, what's a desire? Well, a desire is something you actively want to experience in real life. Desires are rooted in reality and often align with your personal and relational goals. They're things you might discuss with your spouse and hope to incorporate into your relationship. For instance, you might desire to have a weekly date night to keep the romance alive in your marriage. This is a concrete, actionable goal that you can work towards together. Desires often involve mutual consent and shared values, making them more about enhancing your real-life connection. Another example of a desire could be wanting to introduce more physical touch into your daily interactions. Maybe you want to hold hands more often, give each other massages, or cuddle before bed. These desires are all about deepening your physical and emotional bond in a way that is achievable and realistic. So why are they different? Well, the key difference between fantasies and desires lies in their connection to reality. Fantasies are often not meant to be acted upon. They're more about exploration and imagination. Desires, however, are actionable and involve real-life changes and experiences. So let's use an example. A fantasy might involve a scenario where you and your spouse are the stars of an old Hollywood movie, living out a glamorous, passionate romance. You might imagine yourself dressed in a vintage attire, dancing under the stars in a grand ballroom. The fantasy allows you to experience a sense of nostalgia and glamour. And you can definitely talk about this fantasy as a way to incorporate it into your relationship without actually acting it out. A desire, on the other hand, might be to have a date night where you both dress up in vintage clothes and watch an old movie and recreate some of the romantic moments from the film. The desire is rooted in reality and can be planned and executed to enhance the relationship. So how are they each developed? Well, fantasies are developed through a combination of personal experiences, media consumption, and imagination. They can be influenced by books and movies and past experiences, or even just random thoughts. Fantasies often reflect deeper psychological themes and can be a way to explore different aspects of your identity or your sexuality. For example, a fantasy might develop after watching a romantic adventure movie where the couple escapes to a hidden paradise. This movie might spark your imagination, leading you to create elaborate scenarios in your mind where you and your spouse are the protagonists of your own adventure. Desire, on the other hand, are developed through your relationship experiences, communication with your partner, and personal growth. They evolve as you and your spouse learn more about each other and yourselves. Desires might stem from a longing for deeper connection, more intimacy, or new experiences together. For instance, a desire might grow from ongoing conversations with your spouse about wanting to spend more quality time together. You might decide to plan regular weekend getaways or set aside time every evening to talk and connect. These desires are actionable and help strengthen your bond. Hey listeners, are you loving the tips and insights from Sex for Saints? Want to apply them to your own life? Join my Embrace You Elite Society membership. In this exclusive membership, you'll get access to personalized coaching, practical tools, and a supportive community of women, all working towards enhancing their intimate lives. Ready to take your intimacy to the next level? Visit amandalauder.com/membership and join today. Let's embrace a more fulfilling and intimate life together. Use the code podcast at checkout to get 50% off your first month. Now back to the show. It's not uncommon for fantasies to step outside of your value system. Because they are imaginary, they can explore boundaries and scenarios that you wouldn't consider in real life. This is perfectly normal and doesn't necessarily reflect your true desires and intentions. If a fantasy or desire conflicts with your values, it's important to understand that these thoughts don't define you. Instead, it can be a chance to explore why this particular fantasy or desire is appealing and what it says about your deeper needs or emotions. For example, if you have a fantasy about a forbidden romance, it might not mean you want to be unfaithful. Instead, it could indicate a desire for more excitement or passion in your current relationship. Reflecting on these feelings can help you find ways to fulfill your needs within your value system. So it's important to communicate with your spouse about these feelings in a non-judgmental way. Share your thoughts and explore together how you can bring more excitement or passion into your relationship without compromising your values. So I want to share with you some common fantasies and desires. These things, again, are not rooted in reality, but they're a way to explore and use your imagination, okay? So the first is role-playing different characters or scenarios. So imagine being a pirate and a captured maiden, or a teacher and a student. The second is being intimate in unusual places, like a hidden forest or a rooftop or even a library after hours. The third is engaging in power dynamics. So exploring dominance and submission in a safe, consensual way. And the fourth, while it seems outside of your value systems, is very, very common, are threesomes or group sex scenarios. So while this is not necessarily something you would want to act on, these fantasies can reflect a desire for variety or excitement. Now, common desires might include things like trying new sexual activities or positions. So introducing new ways to connect physically and keep things exciting, or increasing the frequency of sex, wanting to make love more often to strengthen your bond. It could be building more emotional intimacy and connection, about spending more time talking, sharing, and understanding each other, or exploring different forms of touch or massage to incorporate more physical affection into your daily routine. So how do we share these with our spouse? When we want to share fantasies and desires, it can be really scary because it can be really vulnerable, but it can also be really rewarding. So here are some tips on how to do it. First, choose the right time. Make sure you're in a private, relaxed setting where you won't be interrupted. Timing is really crucial here. For example, bringing up a fantasy during a heated argument is probably not the best idea. Instead, choose a time when you're both relaxed, maybe after a nice dinner or during a quiet evening at home. Second is to be honest and open. Share your thoughts and feelings openly, but also be mindful of your spouse's feelings. Use gentle language and frame your desires in a positive light. For example, you might say, "I've been thinking about ways we can make our intimate moments even more special. I have a fantasy I'd love to share with you if you're open to it." Number 3 is to use I statements. This helps to express your feelings without making your spouse feel defensive or that they are defective or insufficient. For example, you can say, "I've been thinking about how exciting it would be to try something new together," instead of, "You never want to try anything new." And number 4 is to be respectful. Understand that your spouse may have a different reaction than you're expecting, and that's okay. They might need time to process what you've shared, so be patient and be open to their perspective. I wanted to take a quick break from our conversation to share something really exciting. I'm thrilled to announce my Uplevel Couples Retreat happening in Las Vegas from September 11th to 14th, 2024. This isn't just any retreat. It's an exclusive experience designed for couples ready to deepen their connection and elevate their relationship to new heights. We're keeping it intimate with only a few select couples joining us, so you'll get plenty of personalized attention and transformative experiences. Curious to learn more and see if this retreat is the right fit for you and your partner? Head over to uplevelcouplesretreat.com for all the details and to apply. Don't miss this chance to invest in your relationship and create unforgettable memories together. Now let's get back to our discussion. So what do you do if your spouse is really not receptive? It makes sense, right? And it's really important to respect their feelings and boundaries. So here are some steps that you can take. First is to listen to their concerns, understand their perspective and why they might feel uncomfortable. For example, they might have past experiences or insecurities that make them hesitant. Listening without judgment can help you understand their viewpoint. Number 2 is to find common ground. So look for compromises or alternative ways to fulfill both of your desires. If your spouse isn't comfortable with a particular fantasy, perhaps there's a different way to bring more excitement into your relationship that aligns with both of your comfort levels. Number 3 is to reaffirm your love and commitment. Ensure your spouse knows that their feelings and comfort are a priority to you. Reassure them that your primary goal is to enhance your relationship, not to push boundaries that make them uncomfortable. And number 4 is to seek professional help if needed. They can help you navigate these conversations and find mutually satisfying solutions. They can also provide a safe space for both of you to express your feelings and work towards a deeper understanding. So after I wrote this podcast episode, I was in a Facebook group and a woman posted about how her husband had this fantasy of being able to watch her have sex with another man. And this was really disturbing to her because first she thought that this is what he wanted in real life. And when she asked him about it, he assured her it wasn't. It was just a fantasy. But she didn't understand where it came from and how she could incorporate this in a way that aligns with her values. And so I talked to her about the difference between fantasy and desire, that just because he has a fantasy of this doesn't mean that he actually wants to act it out because it's actually outside of their value system. But this fantasy could be about him feeling very powerful, and that he has, possession of this woman. And I say this lightly, right? Because men don't really actually possess women, but like it's his wife, and it's his ownership and his possession, and other men want her and want to have sex with her. And so it's enticing and attractive to him and makes him feel good about himself that other men want what he has. And this made a lot more sense to her. And so understanding that what the deeper underlying meanings are and what is being created and why it sounds attractive, even if you will never actually desire it or want it in real life. But the interesting thing is to talk about it and use that energy as a way to create more sexual energy in your relationship and direct that energy towards each other. That's a great way to incorporate those fantasies without actually desiring them and acting them out and acting outside of your value system. So fantasies and desires are a really natural part of our sexuality. We really need to understand the difference between them and how they develop and how to communicate them with your spouse in ways that enhance intimacy and connection. Remember, it's all about mutual respect, understanding, and finding ways to support each other's needs and values. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you today. Remember, love is a journey, not a destination. Stay committed, stay passionate, and stay connected. If you want to chat more about this topic, join me on Instagram this week, where we're going to be talking all about the difference between fantasies and desires. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Like what you're hearing on this podcast? Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Don't forget to leave me a review and share it with your friends.